Russell Wilson had more than 200 NFL starts under his belt, a Super Bowl ring, a career worth nearly $500 million, and the New York Giants benched him after 3 games for a 22-year-old rookie who had never thrown an NFL pass in a regular season game. But this isn't just another rookie getting his shot. This is a kid who spent most of high school with 0 recruiting interest, a player so overlooked that local coaches weren't sure he had played Division I ball. Yet somehow, that same kid just became the most important person in New York. That kid is Jaxson Dart. With Brian Daboll's job on the line, an entire franchise in crisis, and the bright lights of New York waiting to destroy another young quarterback, we're about to find out if the Giants just made the biggest mistake in franchise history, or if Jaxson Dart is the NFL's next big thing. To understand how insane this moment is, we need to go back to where it all started. Because Jaxson Dart's story doesn't begin in the NFL. It doesn't even begin with college scouts noticing him. It begins in a place where nobody gets noticed at all: Utah. Roy High School in Utah isn't the kind of place that produces NFL quarterbacks. It's where talented kids play 4 years of football and hang up their cleats forever. And for 3 years, that's exactly where Jaxson was headed. His father, Brandon, had played defensive back at Utah. He knew what it took to play college football, knew the camps, the recruiting, the exposure you needed. And he knew his son wasn't getting any of it. Not because Jaxson wasn't good enough. Heck, he was putting up ridiculous numbers at this point. But nobody was watching. His mechanics were raw, his footwork needed work, and he played in the wrong place at the wrong time. 3 years of starting varsity, 3 years of game film, 3 years of waiting for that one call, that one offer, that one chance. But 0 major offers came. Every Friday night, he was balling out, throwing for 300 yards, leading his team to victories. Then Saturday morning came and his inbox was empty. His phone didn't ring. The coaches who were supposed to discover him didn't even know he existed. That's when Dart made the decision that changed everything. He transferred to Corner Canyon High School. To put things into perspective, Corner Canyon is the program that produced Zach Wilson. This is where elite quarterbacks in Utah go to get noticed. And Dart was walking in as a complete unknown, having to learn a new system, earn a starting job, and get noticed when most kids his age had already signed their letters of intent. The coaches couldn't believe what they saw in practice. This kid nobody wanted had elite anticipation and could make every throw. But what stood out was how he played, with reckless toughness, refusing to slide, lowering his shoulder into defenders like he had something to prove. Then the universe threw him a lifeline. COVID hit, and while most of the country shut down high school football, Utah kept playing. Suddenly, Dart wasn't competing for attention with thousands of other quarterbacks. He was one of the only games in town. Around the same time, ESPN came calling to televise a game against Bingham High. This was it. National television, real exposure, one shot to show the entire country what they'd been missing. Dart went nuclear. 6 touchdown passes, 277 yards through the air, 110 yards rushing. It was the kind of performance that makes coaches immediately pull up their recruiting boards. By season's end, he had thrown for 4,691 yards and 67 touchdowns with just 4 interceptions, plus another 1,195 yards on the ground. With that, the kid who had 0 recruiting buzz suddenly became a 4-star prospect and one of the top-ranked quarterbacks in the country. USC, UCLA, Arizona State, TCU. Everyone wanted him. But Dart made a choice nobody understood. Instead of taking the safe route, he chose USC, a program with a loaded quarterback room where he'd have to fight for every snap. Most people thought he was crazy, but Dart had been fighting his whole life. What was one more fight? 2 games into his USC career, head coach Clay Helton was fired. The program descended into chaos. Months later, USC hired Lincoln Riley, and at first, Dart was ecstatic. Finally, an offensive genius to develop him. That feeling, however, was short-lived. Riley brought Caleb Williams, the 5-star phenom who instantly became USC's starter. Just like that, after everything Dart had done to get to USC, he was back where he started, on the bench, forgotten. He would eventually get his debut in a game against Washington State, and it would turn out to be a mixed bag, with 3 turnovers on his first 3 drives before throwing 391 yards and 4 touchdowns, leading USC to a 45-14 win from being down 14-0. Then, disaster struck. Jaxson tore his meniscus and played through it initially, but eventually missed months of football after undergoing surgery. By the time he came back, the USC landscape had changed. With Riley bringing Caleb Williams, the math was simple. Williams was starting for at least 2 years. By the time Dart got his chance, his college career would be over. So Dart did what he'd always done when people counted him out. He entered the transfer portal. This time was different though. For one, everyone knew who he was. That Washington State game was on national television. The torn meniscus proved he was tough. And luckily for him, Lane Kiffin called almost immediately. When Dart arrived in Oxford, he found something he'd never had before, a coach who actually wanted him, not as a backup plan, but as the guy. The system Kiffin ran was perfect for Dart's skill set. Spread the defense out, create huge throwing windows, let your quarterback make plays. His first year was about learning the system. He threw 20 touchdowns, but 11 interceptions showed he was still adjusting. Ole Miss finished 8-5. However, year 2 was when Dart transformed into something special. The interceptions dropped to 5, while touchdowns jumped to 23. But the game that announced Dart as a legitimate NFL prospect was against LSU. He destroyed them. 389 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, plus another 50 yards rushing. This wasn't just beating LSU. This was dominating an SEC powerhouse on national television. Ole Miss finished 11-2 that season and won the Peach Bowl. At this point in his career, Dart had another important decision to make. He could declare for the NFL draft. The safe move was to get paid, avoid injury, start his professional career while his stock was solid. But Jaxson had never made the safe move in his life. He came back with one goal: show the NFL he wasn't just good, he was special. And that's exactly what he did. The first 3 games of 2024 were insane. He was completing over 80%, then over 90%. Ole Miss was destroying teams by 70 points, then 49, then 34. Against Arkansas, Dart threw 6 touchdown passes. Against Georgia, Ole Miss earned a statement win with Dart in control from start to finish. By season's end, he had thrown for over 4,200 yards with 29 touchdowns against just 6 interceptions, plus nearly 500 rushing yards. He broke Ole Miss's career passing yards record, surpassing Eli Manning. With all this, the NFL couldn't ignore him anymore, but they still had questions. The Ole Miss system was simplified compared to pro offenses. His arm strength was good, but not quite at that elite level scouts drool over. And while Dart had his share of big moments, scouts remembered stretches of inconsistency in SEC play and some untimely picks that raised concerns about decision-making under pressure. Draft night was going to be interesting. Cam Ward went first overall to Tennessee, which surprised nobody. But then something strange happened. Pick after pick went by without another quarterback being selected. The league that usually overdrafts the position was suddenly acting like quarterbacks didn't exist. The Giants were sitting there at pick 34, watching this unfold. They had Russell Wilson, the Super Bowl champion veteran. They had Jameis Winston, the former number 1 overall pick. By all logic, they didn't need a quarterback. But Brian Daboll had been watching Dart for months. This was the quarterback he actually wanted. Not someone he inherited like Daniel Jones. Not a stopgap like Wilson. His guy. The one he could develop from scratch. So Joe Schoen made the call that would change everything. He packaged their 2nd-round pick, their 3rd rounder, and a 2026 third to move back into the 1st round at pick 25. When Roger Goodell announced Dart's name, everything came full circle. The kid who couldn't get a single college offer was now a 1st-round NFL draft pick. The Giants, the team that had been desperately searching for stability at quarterback since Eli Manning retired, had just bet significant draft capital on the kid from Utah. But the plan was never for him to play right away. Russell Wilson was supposed to be the bridge, give them competent quarterback play while Dart sat back, learned the playbook, adjusted to NFL speed. Maybe he'd play in 2026. maybe 2027 if Wilson played well enough. That plan lasted exactly 3 weeks. During the preseason, Jaxson wasn't just good, he was spectacular. 32 completions on 47 attempts, 372 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, plus another 52 yards on the ground with a rushing touchdown for good measure. These weren't garbage time stats against prevent defenses. He was carving up legitimate NFL players, making throws that had coaches looking at each other on the sideline. But here's what the stats don't capture. There were 6 or 7 drops that would have made his numbers even more ridiculous. Passes that hit receivers right in the hands. Perfect throws that should have been completions. He could have easily thrown for 450 yards in the preseason if his receivers had helped him out. The Giants had prepared a special package of plays for Dart in Week 1, planning to use him in specific situations. But when the games came out, they never used them. They didn't need to see more. They already knew what they had. Russell Wilson was still the starter. That was the plan. And that's what they told the media. That was what they told the media. That was what they told Wilson. But everyone in that building knew the clock was ticking. In Week 1, Washington was billed as Russell Wilson's big return, the chance to show he still had something left. Instead, it turned into disaster. He completed just 17 of 37 passes for 168 yards with no touchdowns. The Giants' only points came from 2 field goals, and Wilson ended up leading the team in rushing with just 24 yards. Week 2 against Dallas looked better. Wilson threw for 450 yards and 3 touchdowns. Malik Neighbors caught 9 passes for 167 yards. Then came overtime. Wilson threw a pass that wasn't even remotely close to Neighbors. The Cowboys kicked a field goal. Game over. Week 3 was when everything fell apart. The Giants went 1 for 10 on 3rd down. Wilson threw for 160 yards with 2 interceptions. The offense looked broken. The crowd at MetLife started booing. Then they started chanting for Dart. After the game, Daboll was asked about the quarterback situation. For 3 weeks, he said Russell Wilson is our starter. This time, he said they were evaluating everything. That was Sunday night. By Tuesday morning, the decision was made. After just 3 games, after all the talk about development and patience, the Giants were turning to Jaxson Dart. Wilson handled it like the professional he'd always been, but everyone knew what this meant. His time as a starter was over. For Dart, the first call was to his parents. They'd been waiting for this moment since those days at Roy High School when nobody knew their son existed. The announcement sent shockwaves through the league. Teams don't usually bench Super Bowl winning quarterbacks for rookies after 3 games. But the Giants were 0-3. Their coach was fighting for his job, and they had just decided that Jaxson Dart, the kid nobody wanted, was their answer. On September 28, 2025, Jaxson Dart finally stepped onto an NFL field as the Giants starter. The opponent was the Los Angeles Chargers, undefeated at 3-0 with one of the most punishing defenses in football. It was the kind of matchup that usually swallows a rookie whole, but instead, it became the stage for his arrival. Dart threw for 111 yards and a touchdown, added 54 rushing yards with another score, and guided the Giants to a 21-18 victory. It was not flawless, but it was fearless, and it was historic. The first time in more than 20 years that a quarterback won his debut against an undefeated opponent. For the Giants, it was more than a win. It was the first spark of belief in a season that had already felt lost. For Dart, it was another chapter in a career defined by defying expectations under the brightest lights. The stakes couldn't have been higher, and the pressure any greater, which, if you'd been paying attention to Jaxson Dart's entire life, meant he was exactly where he wanted to be. In the end, this isn't about talent. There are more talented quarterbacks sitting on benches across the NFL right now. Guys with stronger arms, guys with better footwork, guys who came from pro-style systems. But none of them have what Dart has. None of them have spent their entire life being told no, only to turn that into fuel. None of them transferred high schools just to get noticed. None of them went from 0 offers to National Player of the Year in 12 months. Think about the pattern. Overlooked at Roy High, he became the best quarterback in Utah. Lost a job at USC before he even had it, he became an Ole Miss legend. Told he was a mid-round pick, he went in the 1st round. Given a clipboard and told to wait, he's starting after 3 weeks. Every single time. The Giants didn't just draft a quarterback. They drafted someone who's been prepping for this moment his entire life. Someone who doesn't know how to quit because quitting has never been an option. Brian Daboll's job is on the line. Joe Schoen's reputation is at stake. An entire franchise is holding its breath, and they've just handed the keys to a 22-year-old who's never thrown an NFL pass. But if you've been paying attention, you already know how this ends. The same way it always does with Jaxson Dart, with everyone counting him out, and him proving them wrong again.